Good morning. Today I'm doing a talk on awakening together, and I'm just waiting to be tuned into it. You're just introducing me in a minute. So welcome, and let's just get quiet. Let's just be quiet for a few minutes. Let's just be quiet together, and it's a joining in the quietness. Okay, thank you. I think that was Jacqueline that introduced me. Thank you, Jacqueline. And welcome everyone. It was on a little bit later, only about 5 minutes before I was starting to talk today, and I love hearing the end of Phil's session, usually the last 10 or 15 minutes. It's really lovely how when you listen to minds speak that are really feeling this peace, you can totally just fall into it as you listen to them. And blessings. Yeah, and it's one thing that I found really helpful on my journey was just to, sometimes I would put on a talk from someone I like listening to, and I went beyond the words a lot of the time. I just felt joined with their tone of their voice, because this silence, or this centre of silence that I call God's mind, there might be other words that resonate for you: consciousness, awareness. This, I tend to talk about God's mind, or this, because in the realisation it just came through as that word, this. Because that can't go anywhere when with the word this. Sometimes it'll be is, and you know, the Course talks about God is, but actually it's just is. I think I just caught the end of Phil, but you know, just this stillness and this centeredness is actually a true home, and it's this deep peace beyond the thinking mind. And it's just this, it is a an awareness. The Course talks about heaven being the awareness of perfect oneness. And so when you're got no thoughts of fear or judgment, or which are separation thoughts, because how can you judge something or someone if there's no you to judge it? But how do we get to that state? You know, this is a true home, but obviously we're not in it. Generally, we're not there. But as we get on this path and we start connecting with others that have gone along before us and awakened, they give us they're the way showers, and we will get some sort of transmission from just their presence, their peace, and their wisdom. And I hope that I'm starting to provide that through this vessel that I seem to be speaking through. And when I come to these talks, this is, I think, only my third or fourth talk. And, you know, I'm a newbie. I only had an awakening 2 years ago, and it's been maturing. And I felt to just stay in the quietness about it. I felt just to let it permeate and come in as a deep peace, and not sort of rush out and try to do too much with it. And that sort of seemed to be my guidance, was to really be still and sit in the stillness and let it mature. Because what happens, I think, when you realise truth, you usually have this massive excitement. It's like opening a present and seeing what you already are, and then you just laugh. You laugh because you go, wow, I've actually been searching for something that's always been here, but it's beneath. It's beneath what the Course calls the obstacles and the blocks, or the mind, or the little self that I think I am. And it starts off as a lot of people describe their awakening, you know, and it's really joyful, and it's like, you know, guess what? You know, I've just realised this, and, you know, I've just had this seeing, and I know what they were talking about now. You know, I listened to them, and I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? And then all of a sudden, it's like part of your mind knows it. It's a knowing, and it's not an intellectual understanding. It's like actually going into it. And, you know, it takes as long as it takes. And, you know, for me, I just put one foot in front of the other each day, and that was just my journey. And actually never really thought that I'd have anything like this happen to my mind, or my big shift. I actually never really contemplated that would be where this man would end up in this piece. I mean, I read about it in the Course. He described this piece, but I never in my wildest dreams thought I'd have to basically undoing my ego for the rest of my life. And in a way, I'm vigilant for it, but I didn't really ever sort of focus on the piece. It was more, I was very vigilant, extremely, you could say, like a Nazi vigilance for my ego, but it was really a commitment to not overlooking any judgment that my ego mind was having. And I think that's the pointy end of the stick a lot of the time. You know, I'm around a lot of people, various at various stages of awakening, and I really notice where they overlook. So, you know, they talk about being the love and they talk about being Christ. And then in the next breath, they'll talk about their ex-partner and call them names. And, you know, this is what's, you know, this is what we need to do. We are this presence of love, and we can fall into it, and we can really just rest in God, rest in this silence, rest in this now moment. But what's going to take you out of it is your judgment, so your unconscious guilt, something bubbling up onto the surface of your mind that's going to take you out of that unconsciously. And I remember a while ago I was talking to my brother about, you know, I said there is a way to live in a peaceful mind that doesn't move. There is a way, you know, there's a path. There's you know, that it's not about bypassing these judgments and these fears and these grievances, because that's the way the ego keeps them hidden, and that's the way they continuously arrive in our mind. We have to actually like turn around and face them and look at them. And I think, you know, barring Cate's a living example of that, her process is, you know, do not, if you're suffering because you're believing something, do a worksheet on it. You know, there's lots of processes. Sometimes, well, my process was, you know, there's many processes. It can be, some people just say, you know, shine the love on it. I personally think it's whatever works for you, whatever you feel is. If you ask the Holy Spirit, that's what I usually do. And it's, for me, it's like a tool belt. And sometimes I might get this very strong prompt to write out what's in my mind. Other times I might get to do a Bar and Cate worksheet. Other times I just feel I just offer it up to the Holy Spirit and say, help me see this differently. And other times I'll just get very quiet, and I'll just let it permeate into my mind and just say, okay, there was some uncomfortableness about something. Maybe I'm with someone and there's a tiny sticking point. At one stage there was a huge sticking point, so I'd be very resistant to what they were saying, to something they were doing, and that's the ego. So it's whatever works for you. You know, I suggest getting a tool belt, and there's lots of tools that are presented by lots of different minds that have done it. It might just be meditating. But the worst thing is to just overlook, just say that doesn't matter, that person's an arsehole, and that's just the way it is, you know. And that's the mind that wants to be right. And I was listening to Bar and Cate doing the work on Donald Trump, and I posted it up on my Facebook page. It was brilliant. You know, why am I upset? Because I'm believing my thoughts. And that's really it. Nothing's happened. Nothing's happened yet. And when I'm free of my fear thoughts about what might happen, which is the ego's projections into the future based on a fearful past, when my mind's just sitting with what is, I mean, if I look around now, life is just going on. The sun is shining, the dog's lying on the floor, I'm speaking, I'm totally in peace. It's life. It's actually what I call God. It's just God happening God appearing. So this is where we end up in this deep piece of seeing beyond the veil of this resistance to what is. And for me, it wasn't an easy place to get to, awakening to what is. And we really need to have the willingness. When I have a judgment, when I have a grievance, when I have an upset, it's in me, 100% in me. That person's not doing anything. They've triggered something that's in my mind. I have a belief. And, for me, that's just been my journey of owning it. So I'll actually rest in peace when I look at this judgment or belief. And they say that desire is at the centre of the ego's mind. But a lot of the time the desire is hidden, and it's sometimes easier to go to the next step beyond that, which is the beliefs. So I always generally worked with my beliefs, and as I worked with the beliefs, the desires became illuminated through looking at the beliefs. So it doesn't matter what process you do, it's really being mindful that my beliefs are actually holding a self-concept in place in my mind. Because if you never had a grievance, or you never had a judgment, you never thought you were right about anything or anyone, you'd be in total freedom. You'd be in God's mind. God's mind is heaven, because it's beyond the idea that you know. And what happens is that the ego would constantly say to me that if I didn't have any judgments, then how would I know what was right or wrong? And someone could attack me and I wouldn't be ready for it. So these are the stories that the ego weaves along the way to awakening. And the Course in Miracles is very clear that it's about removing the obstacles to peace, removing the obstacles to the awareness of love. It doesn't just say you are love and just sink into that, because that's not the path. The path is about, with the Course in Miracles, he explains the ego in a great detail. And that's what I liked. I loved actually getting a deep understanding of what this actual ego mind is. And when I first came across Seek and Do Not Find, that just resonated deeply, because I had been living in a state of mind of seeking outside myself. I sought I sought relationships where the ego basically says that love comes from without, and that when I get this really loving partner that loves me and adores me, I'll be happy. And it's got basically a whole pack of lies that's feeding us, and we're falling for it, and everyone is. And that's the dream, that's the sleep, that we're searching outside ourselves. And actually what we're doing is we're just looking at our mind projected outward. And we just think that there's something in this world that's going to make us happy. And what the teachings are is go within. And can you remain unattached to everything? Can you remain unattached to anything being the way you want it to be, which is not you, it's the ego. So sometimes it's just this understanding that who I am is not the ego. There's a thought system that's controlling me. and it's clueless. It's like, I always think I've shared this before. I think it's, you know, if you pulled up in your car and asked someone for directions somewhere and they didn't have a clue, but they tried to assist you with getting where you thought you wanted to go. And so they went, oh, look, go up there, do this, take a right, then take a left. And you're looking at this person and you're thinking, you're absolutely convinced that they know where this place is. And the ego calls it happiness. But actually what it's always doing is guessing. So that's why I started to laugh at the ego in the end, because this is the thing, we didn't laugh. So I started to see the ego as somebody giving me directions that had no clue but was sort of trying to help. And a friend of mine I loved it, and she said to me one day, yeah, I just say to the ego, yeah, thanks for sharing. It's like trying to be helpful. It's like, okay, happiness is, look, get a new job. Piss these other people off that you work with. They're hopeless. They're not very nice. Find another job. You know what? You need a new career. You know what? Maybe you need to go back and study. So it's this constant rambling of advice from somebody that absolutely knows. If you listen to this voice, you just don't get anywhere. And when I read that, I just started to illuminate in my mind, oh my God, I've been searching for this happiness in all the wrong places. You know, I've bought all these, you know, I've bought all this jewellery. And the Holy Spirit started to show me that these diamonds and things that I really valued and I'd worked really hard to get, and they were little specks of dust, and someone had shined them up, and it was like, you know, the man selling the snake oil. It was like, oh, look, you get more of these little shiny things, you'll be really happy. You know, and then, you know, it was just somebody decided that gold was more valuable than silver, more valuable than bronze. And I mean, my mind started to look at all these things very differently with the Holy Spirit I was working on, like, show me everything differently, right? Someone the other day called me a spiritual warrior because I was prepared to see every single value I held in my mind. I wanted it not washed out, I wanted it reinterpreted. And it's not to say it's good or bad, it was just that I started to see everything in a different light. And you just laugh. I just started to laugh because all these things that I'd valued, and it shifts. The ego says, oh, hang on, you got that diamond ring, but guess what? There's a new Pandora bracelet out, you know, and look at all the nice shiny things there. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with having these things. You know, if you feel to go get them or someone buys them for you, they're lovely little things. But I'm talking about a mindset that is in a constant state of looking outside itself, even very subtly. So yeah, I was constantly looking outside me for love, and I wanted everyone to be different. And then along comes these lovely paths, but my path was A Course in Miracles. And it just explained to me that the thought system I was listening to had no idea. It was confused. I was pulling up, winding down my window and asking somebody that didn't know. There was nothing wrong with it. It was just, it didn't know. So why do I keep asking it? And then I was like, yeah, actually I've been asking that mind, or it's been advising me for 50 years. And where I ended up was quite depressed. And you know, chronic fatigue, and I had lots of tonsillitis, and I didn't know that I was listening to a voice that was clueless, and it kept me searching, and it just made me think that I was limited to this body. That's my dog choking, coughing over there. Yeah, and so it was just this, just remaining vigilant. I didn't say, oh, I have to do it all in one go. I just said, okay, Holy Spirit, you're my partner in this now. I'm choosing you. And, you know, when I got fearful, when I did get fear come up, which I did, and I got doubt, but what comforted me were two sayings from the Course in Miracles, and one of them was that doubt will come to go, to come again. I said, well, this is a normal thing. There's nothing going wrong. This is part of it. And so what I came to see was when I got doubt, it lasted a couple of days. And then my mind would shift back into this lovely peace and trust. So I started to say, okay, that's going to come and go. And then another teaching from the Course was that you can't judge your progress. So he says, what you believe are your retreats are sometimes your biggest advances, and sometimes what you think are your biggest advances are your retreats. So I'm like, I'm bloody clueless. I've got no idea how I'm going. You know, when I was in this massive fearful state, I thought, oh my God, this fear's all coming up. I'm not a very good student because I'm really fearful and I can't trust the Holy Spirit. You know, I just felt I couldn't trust. No, I was in states. No, I don't want to hear the Holy Spirit because this is really going on and this person's really doing this and this is really happening. And I would be just in that state of mind where I wasn't ready to trust. And that's okay. But what I see now, well, they were my biggest advances because when I did shift into trust, I'd overcome a huge hurdle because what was coming up in my mind was the ego's biggest fears. And then I started to realise that that's what happens. He talks about that in the Manual for Teachers, that your fears, it's going to go from suspicious to vicious because the ego's thought system knows it's on the way out. So it brings in the big guns. So whatever you're most fearful around, whatever your mind holds as its biggest fear, could be death, could be sickness, could be financial insecurity, could be, you know, your child dying, could be whatever. It'll ramp it up. And these are sort of the times where, you know, we just have to sit and say, look, I've got a lot of fear today, so what can I do? Okay, well, I know in the past meditation's helped. I would generally use I rest in God. I would just repeat that to myself and that would take my mind away from the fear. But ultimately, I had to face it. I had to turn around and completely stare the ego's fear in the face, but I did it with Jesus. So I think you just use the guide that you trust, however you want to do that. But from my journey, I had to say, okay, I've got this terrible fear of financial insecurity. I can't trust that the Holy Spirit will guide me, and I can't trust that the Holy Spirit will provide. You know, it says in the Course, He'll provide for you. But what happens is as you go along on this journey, He talks about things dropping away. And as you just, it's like He talks about as a child just drops a toy. You know, children, you watch them, they're just playing with a toy and put it down and move on to the next one. And he says that's the way our attachments are just going to drop away. So I just started to see that these fears and these attachments that I had just started to fall away as I kept connecting with the Holy Spirit, as I kept giving over my fear. And this is the way I did it. I just said if I was feeling guilty or fearful, I'd say, Holy Spirit, have this fear, have this guilt, have this judgment. I don't want it. And I'd mentally put it on the altar and I'd just give it to the Holy Spirit. And as I just released it to him, the entity of pure knowing, wisdom, love, because I knew I wasn't feeling that. As I gave it, I'd get this sense of my body would just sort of feel this release of this holding on. Like it'd be all my muscles would be tight, holding on. And I think when you're in judgment and fear and whatever, it is this sort of tenseness that's felt in the body. And then I would just say, help me to see this differently. Above all else, I want to see this differently. Because that's when the truth's illuminated. And the Holy Spirit can't illuminate the truth into our minds, which is just engaging the right mind of this actual knowing. That can't be engaged while we're sitting with the fear, because the fear just permeates the mind. And so this was my process that I used. It's just one of many. It was helpful to me and still is. If I have anything come up where I'm not completely loving to everyone, if there's what happens the minute you've got something with someone, you're separating. And when you don't have that judgment and that guilt, because what happens with guilt, it makes you want to run away from people. But you're actually, that's what happens unconsciously. That's what I noticed when I felt guilty. I had a lot of mother guilt. Well, the ego's just guilt, and then I had grandchildren, and then I had grandmother guilt. And then I started to see that I just had to work on each one at a time. So I remember one night I just sat down and I just said, okay, tonight I'm undoing grandmother guilt. And I just asked, join with the Holy Spirit, and I said, okay, let's go through this, and I just write. And first of all, this is another process that I did. I might just talk about this a little bit now because it's actually a really good process. And after I was doing it for a year or so, I heard Adyashanti talking about that he used this process, and no one ever gave it to me. I just found this process, and probably lots of other people find it in their journey. They just do. You just do something and it works. And it's just writing actually out the ego, which is, I think, sort of Cate does that when she says, just let your judgment come out, just like, I want this. But what I actually went into as well was I brought up the pure hatred, because that's the ego's thought system is pure hatred and pure murder, but it's so out of our awareness. And so what we have to do is we have to get up these secret sins and this hidden hatred. And what happens is, as it comes to the light, it dissolves and disappears. So it's not like we're regurgitating our past. When we do it with the Holy Spirit, we're doing it with a different intention. We're not bringing it up into our minds to look at it and say, oh yeah, they really did this, or, So with the grandmother guilt, that was just one of many, and that was sort of more towards the end of undoing a lot of the guilt and judgments in my mind. But I'd sort of given myself 2 years to look at everything that I was holding on to, and it was sort of like a project. And as the Course in Miracles says, you know, it's a mind training course. You're training your mind to think differently. You'll end up thinking with God, and God is perfect love. But if you're not thinking with perfect love, well, that's what the Holy Spirit's for, which is the right mind. But that's out of awareness when we're judging and we're asleep, and it can be difficult to wake up, and the ego wants us to sleep. So it's sort of, we're undoing a thought system that's not real, it's false. That's why it says bring the false to the truth, or so yeah, don't bring truth to the false. So okay, so I'm bringing up all the false. Okay, I'm writing out just what the ego's saying. So I'm just getting in touch with what my mind's thinking, what these thoughts are. So okay, I know I'm a terrible grandmother. Yeah, it's a bit like Byron Cate, but what actually I go to sort of a bit of a deeper level is I just go to I actually hated the other grandmother, not me. The ego, who I am, loves everyone. So I allowed the hatred up, because that has to come up for there to be true healing. So I noticed it's not me that hates it, it's a thought system that says if she was out of the way, I'd look better. Was my son. My son is 37, and he's married with 2 children, and my daughter-in-law's mother's very close to my grandkids, and I was too. But she was, my daughter's mother was there a lot and helping out, and when I went over there, this was years ago when I was doing what I call the Course in Miracles work, the Holy Spirit, I could notice guilt. I was like, well, she's here helping so much, you know, you're not. She's closer to the grandkids, you're not. So all these thoughts are coming in, and I mean, I'm laughing now because I know they're not true, but at the time I'd go into this terrible feeling. Yeah, you're hopeless, you know, you're not a very good grandmother. And they're not my thoughts, they're the ego's thoughts. So what came from that, because the ego's thought system is, you know, deep unworthiness. So the unworthiness then hated the other grandmother because she looked like she should get out of the way and that I'd look better. And I just had to notice all this, but before I could actually get the healing of it, I had to write it out. And it says, don't be scared, you know, don't be scared to look within. It's to actually undo all this rubbish that's in our minds. So yeah, I wrote it out, and I wrote about how much I hated her, how much I wanted her out of the way. And actually that really reminds me of that when Byron Cate was doing the work with the Trump. I was watching that last night. You know, one of the things was, I want him dead, I want him out of the way. And that's the ego. The ego wants everyone dead and out of the way, but it's all hidden, and it's really good to be honest. And yeah, and I hate her because that's the ego. It's not who I am. And so what happens is as all this rubbish comes up, this whole thought system of separation and hatred and guilt, and it's seen for what it is. So you join with the Holy Spirit and you laugh at it and you go, oh my God, you know, I'm just this loving grandmother. My grandkids love me, I'm there, and in fact, I'm actually asking Holy Spirit when to go and see them. I'm asking Holy Spirit, what can I do? So I'm not coming from the ego, which the ego would say, right, don't go around as much because you're not good enough. or it'll be right, you know. And it's, as I said, this thought system of the ego was always going to advise you wrongly, because it's coming from lack, it's coming from fear, it's coming from hatred, it's coming from guilt, it's coming from a thought system that's trying to fix something that's not real, because we're not guilty. We are the absolute love of God. Every part of us is just this perfect, whole, complete. And that's who we are. And when we sit in that completeness and this holiness, I mean, we're so holy. We're absolutely divinity. We are this Christ divine self. That's who we are. And all this other rubbish that's in our minds is keeping us from that's the block. And he says, bring it up and cast it on me. Give it to me. I'll show you something. I'll show you how divine you are. But while you've got these thoughts of guilt and shame and I'm not good enough and unworthiness, which is all just a belief that I'm separate from God and separate from my brothers. So when we give it to the Holy Spirit and say, okay, this is all the rubbish in my mind, this is the ego's thought system, I'm separate to these thoughts. I am not these thoughts. If I believe them, I connect with them, and I'm suffering. But that's all those thoughts about, you know, you're unworthy, you're guilty, you're not good enough, you get around to see your grandkids and you don't, you know, you're not connected enough to them. You know, there's just this whole rubbish that comes through, these thoughts that aren't real. And then what happens is when I used to go and see my grandchildren, I wasn't present with them because I was constantly had all these thoughts about, well, see, they don't like you. They didn't come and they didn't sit with you very long. So that proves it, you know, and the ego looks for proof of its guilt. And so when we work with this right-minded, we're not going into all this unworthiness, and we're really present. We're just saying, look, I'm going to expose this person that's giving me the directions. You know, when I've pulled up and I've said, how can I be happy with my grandchildren? How can I be fully present with them? And I ask the ego, well, this is going to give me a whole story of how unworthy I am and how guilty I am and all the things I did wrong. Well, you know, you did all these things wrong with your children, so now you're mucking up with your grandchildren. And the ego can get very vicious. And so, you know, sometimes you can from this guilt, you know, you can just do silly things. You might overcompensate. You might go out and buy lots of presents. You know, I need to get them to like me. And I started to do that, and then I just noticed that. I'm like, okay, what's that all about? And then I said, all right, Holy Spirit, I've got no idea. Help me. Well, he helped me see that actually what was truly going on was that each grandparent has a different role to play in their grandchildren's lives. And the fact that I was doing this work and awakening to truth, that you know, just my presence, just my laughter and my peace and my open-heartedness and just telling them how gorgeous they were and how beautiful they were and how amazing, and just this opening of this heart love for them, that's all that was needed. And to forget about this self that I think this is, that I am, because once I believe I've got a self that needs to do anything right, and it's constant, you know, a chatter of, and once I go beyond that and I'm just working with the Holy Spirit, he's just saying, you know, just be the love. That's all you need to do, Cate, is just be love. You just need to, you know, and I just said, just tell me when I need to go see them. So I wasn't run by guilt. And this is just one little example of how we can work. I trawled through all the issues. I just became really, really aware of all the ways the ego was hijacking my mind, and was vigilant and was willing to bring it up. I didn't hate the other grandmother. I love her, absolutely love her. And I do, and now I see her because the guilt's gone. And I just sat down with that one night, and it all went in that moment, and it all dissolved. And, you know, I just see her now, and I'm just openly loving with everyone these days, because there's no resistance to love. I just know who they are. I feel that my mind's in love with the Christ in everyone. And it's seeing Christ. It's seeing the innocence, it's seeing the guiltless. It's like seeing the holiness. It's like you're joining in this joy and this holiness. You know, you're just totally in love with everyone. You're just totally in love with everyone because your mind's free. If it's free of all this crap, this guilt, you've just been fully present and you're just enjoying this, you know, this mundane, what might seem the most mundane life things. The ordinariness of life illuminates to be this joyful, joyful place. I love the most ordinary things, just having a cup of coffee with someone, just being around my grandkids and them running around and just dressing up, and even their little fights, you know, it's just joyful. It's just beautiful. I don't need to be sitting in a cave. I don't need to go anywhere. The joyfulness of life as it is, this pure, absolute love of life in everything it's showing me. It's just truly, truly beautiful when you're just sinking into this. The way it is, and it is what it is, and it is God. It's love. It's just sometimes a bit beyond words. It's an experience of a mind that is clear of guilt. And when you're clear of guilt and judgment, you're just sinking into this presence, which is the present. And it's a constant. So your mind's not in time, your mind's in this timeless state because everything's the same in a timeless mind. It's just connected to what the Course calls the eternal now, which is the now moment. When I actually truly saw with spiritual vision what's here, which is, I suppose, what they call the awakening, that once the ego is not involved with looking at this world, when you see the real, he calls it the real world, but when you see really with true vision, it's sparkling, and it's the simplicity of it is what takes you by surprise, because what happens is you're actually so present with what is. Your mind is so clear of any commentary on what is. And what seems to illuminate is this really simple beingness. And you think, this is it. It's just so beautiful. You sort of come around in this big full circle. You think you're going to reach this state of ecstasy, but it's not that. It's just a state of living in this, you know, the deep, deep, deep peace. And it's actually, this peace is infinite. I'm just really, truly, truly grateful for the minds that have gone before me, for Bill and Helen for having the guts to write, to actually publish something that their egos were probably really reluctant to, you know, how will this make me look? Because they, you know, especially Helen she was quite open that she was fearful about what people would think about her and her position. And I'm really pleased that they, you know, published the course and made it available. These words of the Christ mind, the truth, were able to, you know, I knew when I started reading the Course in Miracles that that whoever wrote it wasn't living in this world. So far beyond it. And I just feel this deep gratefulness, this gratitude that, you know, that they were able to move beyond what they were feeling, maybe their attachments to their positions. And it's funny, I mean, I've sort of, you know, I came to a fork in the road when I sort of had my awakening from the Course, the ego dropped away. I was just living in this mind of God. All the teachings in the Course just illuminated. It was like every word made sense, every sentence made sense. It was like I probably couldn't say that I could write it. I don't think I'm at that level of mind. But I was very close. Like when I first read it, I didn't understand much of what it said, but now it's like it's reading my mind and I'm reading it, and it's sort of like I forgot what I was going to say then, but what it feels like now, it actually feels like a song. It started to, when I read the Course, it started to sing to me, and it was actually like angels and this beautiful music, and it was like my heart was just opening so wide, and I was singing to God. My heart, every part of my body, it's like when I talk about it, it's like my body goes tingly, because it feels like you're in actually a love song with God, actually in the song, and you're singing and he's singing back, but it's not a he, it's just love singing to love. It's just this love singing to love. It's just this amazing experience of this perfect love that this love is. It's beyond anything I could have ever imagined. And I'm just so grateful for that. Actually, I was willing to be wrong. I think I was just so fed up with how what I was experiencing. And I was talking about when I came to a fork. Because I was in this love, I could have easily left the Course in Miracles behind. And I remember just sort of thinking, joining with the Holy Spirit for a while, and it felt like I had to make the choice. It was like, well, you choose. And I just sat with it, because I could have just completely dropped this path and just gone off and, I don't know, just, got a job and just lived my life in this pure, sat on my veranda on a rocking chair, just patted my dog and, just not talked about the Course, not talked about my journey, just what came to it. And there was a lot of people that had left this path, had awakenings, and it just said, no, done with the Course in Miracles. But what came through was I wanted to teach. I wanted to be a way shower. I wanted to say, if you do the lessons and if you read the text and if you join with the Holy Spirit, and it's okay, you are going to have some fear, and it's going to seem like you're going backwards, and it's going to seem like it's a long way. And I have a few people say to me, when I get stuck, I just think, oh, well, Cate did it. And so I just think, I really have given my life to God. I've just said, if I can do anything to help anyone. And I'm house sitting at the moment. And that doesn't need to be teachings. It can be just this readiness to just just help. And I don't care how that turns up. If someone asks me to help, I'll help. You know, if they want to do a process with me and help them shift some beliefs, I'll do that. And the next day I live with my mum and she says, can you put some plants in the garden and do some weeding? I'll help with that. I don't have any ideas about what I'm going to be doing tomorrow. And it's purely a life lived completely free of planning and just allowing where I'm meant to be. Someone's just written, I often think that Cate did it so I can too. Very helpful when I feel discouraged. That's beautiful. Welcome, Kathy, Regina, Teddy and Sharon. I've only got a few more minutes to go. And I just really like to say how grateful I am for Regina for starting up Awakening Together. I listened to Regina's backup interview. I go for half an hour walk each day, so I did it in 4 lots and it was absolutely joyful listening to it. And believe it or not, her journey, it actually was the closest interview or the talk that I've ever heard that was so similar to mine. And at times she nearly said similar words to me, the way I would express it. Yeah, and she said that, you know, she didn't like to talk about anything she hadn't experienced. And I'm like, oh my God, I say that and I felt that. And yeah, Regina's just said, I feel the same way when I listen to you. And I was like, wow, I feel, you know, we used our relationships. We went into relationships with, you know, this Holy Spirit purpose. And yeah, there were some differences. I didn't have any channeling or, you know, scribing. But I think what we represent is really each mind has to awaken in its own way. But I think what people that have gone before us, and they did it for me, and now I'm happy to do it for others, is just to say that this works. And, you know, if I feel like, I think even Regina said, oh, if I can get there, anyone can. I felt that too, because it wasn't something that I ever thought would happen. But I knew that I was very, very vigilant. And it was a one-pointed goal, not to awaken. And even I heard Regina say that, don't have a goal to awaken. I'm like, oh my God, that's exactly what I say. I never had a goal to awaken. I had a goal to undo the ego beliefs. So, because we have to remove the blocks to the presence of love. That's what the course is about, removing the blocks. So we have to be vigilant for the blocks. And the blocks are just where I have judgment, I have fear around something, I have guilt. So that's all we need to do, and we just need to join with the Holy Spirit, and the Holy Spirit will come into your mind. And there's some good books around to help you actually connect. If you think you can't hear, I bought a book when I first went into this big commitment to undo my ego mind. I bought a book by, I think it's called John Paul David. He's got a CD out, him and his wife, Candace, I think her name is. They've got a book and a CD out. And that was very helpful for me. John David Paul Doyle. Thanks, Regina. Okay, so his name is David Paul Doyle. If you're listening to this and you're interested, They really were very helpful for me with getting connected to the Holy Spirit. So, you know, we've got all these beautiful minds that are bringing in this help. And that's all it's about, is just opening up to this lovely help. So it's a couple of minutes towards the hour. And, so someone else saying that's how they did it too, and they love those guys. And it's beautiful. This is just a lovely, lovely journey. We're all walking each other home, and I'm just so grateful. I'm holding your hands and I'm walking with you, and I'm so grateful for the people that went before me that helped me on my journey, and I'm holding my hand out to others. And if I can help in any way through anything, I'm truly blessed, and I bless you, and I love you, and I honour you. And we're all going home together. And so thank you. I'll just take the mic off now and say thank you for having me. I'm truly blessed to be here, and have a beautiful night and a beautiful day wherever you are. Blessings. And I've just got to try and... Oh, okay. I think I've got it off now.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so the radio show is finished now, my little presentation, and I'm put this up on YouTube eventually. So thank you, and thank you for joining with me. And if you're watching this, it's the 23rd of January 2017, and I hope you have got something out of this talk. And I love you, I honour you, and I bless you. Goodbye.